Hello, 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 and welcome to Prime Time Sunday. This is Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jah, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In today's edition, we're going to be looking at the global research. That's the global research, the Global Justice and Research Project. That's the GJRO, and its work when it comes to Liberian civil war related crimes. My name is Dennis Jah again, and my guest is Mr. Hassan Bilite, who's joining us from Monrovia. Hassan, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Great. Our guest, Mr. Hassan Bilite, is on the phone. He's joining us from the capital city, Monrovia. Specifically, he's on the Bushra Island. He's a former editor-in-chief of the Analyst newspaper, a former press officer of the European Union mission in Liberia, and currently he is the executive director of the Global Justice and Research Project. The Global Justice and Research Project is an organization responsible in collaboration with jurisdictional authorities in Western Europe and North America for the arrest and prosecution of all suspected Liberian war criminals, with the exception of President Charles Taylor and his son Chucky Taylor. Mr. Bilite is the winner of the Press Union of Liberia Journalist of the Year Award 2002. He's the recipient of Amnesty International's Human Rights Journalism Under the Threat Award in 2003 and the Judith Leon Stronach Human Rights Award 2018 in San Francisco, California. He also worked as the Director of Communication at the Institute of International Justice and Development, Boston, Massachusetts. We should also note that as the editor of the Analyst newspaper, he was sent to prison and tortured for about 6 months under President Charles Taylor in 2002. Once again, Mr. Bilite, we are glad to have you.
Thank you very much, and I'm very glad to be on the platform.
Great. How is it there in Bushra Island? How are you doing?
Rainy, as usual. It's rain. This is rainy Monrovia tonight, especially Bushra Island. It's very rainy and it's very wet. But anyways, we're here holding up.
All right. And really, I thought you were in Boston. That way, I used to. How long you been in Liberia now since you left the United States, and what are you doing there currently?
Well, I came to Liberia related crimes here. As you may know,
yeah, we lost you. We lost you. I lost you a little bit. Can you say that again?
Yeah, so I'm currently in Liberia working on war-related crimes documentation and prosecution overseas through the employment of universal jurisdiction. I left the United States 2011 at about towards the end to come to Liberia to work on these issues because in 2009 the Truth and Reconciliations Commission submitted its recommendation to the Liberian government. And after 2 3 years, we saw that the recommendations were brushed under the carpet and nobody was doing anything about it. So we thought that there was another way to look at it, which was universal jurisdiction, which allows other countries to investigate, arrest, and prosecute suspected war criminals all over the world. So the point was if the Liberian government, both the previous and current governments, did not do it, other jurisdictions would do it for them. And this is not a question of choice. I'm not sure Liberia has a choice when it comes to this. We either going to have to do it or someone else is going to have to do it for us. Otherwise, we're going to end up electing people to public offices who are going to travel when they travel to other countries. some of them going to get arrested first and prosecuted, and they're not probably going to come back to Liberia. So it is contingent upon that. That while in Boston, I packed my bags and said to myself that it was necessary that I came to Liberia to work on this issue because prior to that, I had worked with, not for, not in the employ of U.S. government officials, agencies, for example, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, the Dutch Department of Justice on some of these issues. So I thought that I could do it in Liberia. Contingent upon that, I returned to Liberia to start work on this, and we started in 2012. That's like 9 years ago.
Okay. So, Mr. Bility, I remember you as a journalist with the Analyst newspaper. How did you get involved in this whole issue of war crimes or transitional justice as a whole?
First of all, I'm personally a victim of torture during war. You know, war crimes are international crimes, and war crimes can only occur during armed conflict. Unlike crimes against humanity, which can occur or which can be committed during both war and peace times. And war crimes are defined as violations of international humanitarian laws, IHL, while crimes against humanity is legally defined as a widespread or systematic attack directed against the civilian population. So basically, I'm a Liberian, first of all, and I place my country first and foremost. So while in the United States, of course, I worked there, but I thought that my impact would be felt more in these areas. As I said to you earlier, I had had some experiences with working with jurisdictional authorities in the United States and in Europe. So understanding that, coupled with war crime documentation and other training we've got from the Hague, that's Den Haag in the Netherlands, I thought that I could help. I could do
Yeah.
something. I didn't just want to follow people who think that everybody else should follow them. I thought that I could make some impact. First, we made impact, and first, our work has generated a lot of enthusiasm in Liberia, and it's made people to stand up. And we've been involved with and sponsored in part almost all of the peaceful protests in Liberia with respect to the establishment of a war crimes court. We paid cash, to support transport of people, to support people to come to Monrovia to protest peacefully. So this is working. It has had some work. When we started in 2012, uh, very few people wanted to speak to us because people feared that physical attacks against them. Of course, I go through those like regularly, and those are documented or in courts around the world, attacks against my person. But we have to understand that we cannot allow, as Liberians, we cannot allow other people to try to colonize our opinion, to try to
Mm.
colonize what we intend to do. We're sure that the system may not be perfect, but you don't go to war with what you need. You go to war with what you have. Because if you want to go to war, if you want to go to war with what you need, of course, you're probably not going to go. I'm
Yeah.
simply trying to say there are available avenues that we thought we could use. And of course, we are successfully using those avenues to make sure that those who murder people in Liberia, those who torture people in Liberia, those who are responsible for having thousands of kids then and now, young men now out of school, are held accountable for the crimes they committed.
Yeah.
Those are international crimes, and they fall under Common Article 3 of the 1949 Geneva Convention, to which Liberia is a signatory.
Thank you.
And the Common Article 3 specifically refers to armed conflict between a state power, a state party and a non-state party, or between two non-state parties. A state party will be a government, and a non-state party will be a rebellious group. So this is the case in Liberia. So it's quite different. Its laws are a bit different from an international conflict, say,
Yeah. Yeah.
to countries like ancillary. So that is what we're doing. Excuse me, and we're happy that we are producing tangible results.
Right.
And I
And we're
also
going to
want
get to
to
those
thank
results.
the government, the President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and of course the current government for never ever attempting to interfere with our work. Nobody knows when which government is going to implement the TRC. So there is no reason why we should sit as conscious people and listen to the contaminator renegade of the old political order who have been moving around with their bags of exhausted and unmarketable political tricks to tell us that this is not going to work. If it's not going to work in Liberia, it's working elsewhere. And it will
And
continue to work, and the Liberian people will continue to make it work. We'll make it work. We continue to mount pressure until a government, I don't know which government, until a government succumbs to the pressure relating to the will and pleasure of the Liberian people to have these things done. We cannot have
thank
the
you.
country where hundreds of thousands of people are murdered and nothing happens and people just behave like this business as usual. We
Thank
refuse.
you. Thank you, Mr.
We
Billington.
doctrinally differ with. Yeah.
Thank you. I like what you said. Work with what you have, not what you need. So let's start with your work. Or you're part of, or you're the executive director of the Global Justice and Research Project. Before we get to that, I want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is focused on Liberia. My guest is Mr. Hassan Bilite. He's the executive director of the Global Justice and Research Project. And so we're going to cover the work or what Mr. Ability is doing with that organization. What are some of the results or the work he's been doing, he's been involved with. And we're going to also work or speak to and discuss will allow Mr. Ability to respond to allegations that he has been engaging in witness payment and witness coaching to maybe lie or testify against some alleged war criminals. So, Mr. Ability, let's start with the global research, the Global Justice and Research Project. What is it all about, and what is the work, and what have you done so far?
Well, the Global Justice and Research Project is a non-governmental organization, Monrovia, Liberia based. Excuse me. Our primary job is we document war-related crimes inside Liberia from the two previous Liberian civil wars. That's 1989 December to 2000 to 1996, 96, 97, and 1999 April 21st to 2003. We document them. Now the reason we do that is that the previous Liberian government under Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and the current government under George Weah, we believe they are either unable or unwilling to implement the TRC's the recommendations of the TRC. So we document these things inside Liberia. Of course, our staff are trained in The Hague and the Institute for International Criminal Investigation in Den Haag or The Hague. We document them in Liberia and we look at where some of these suspected war criminals might be because their victims are suffering inside Liberia. Some of them are handicapped, some of them with one leg, one hand amputated, some of them are victims of multiple rapes, sexual assaults, and all of that. So because there is nothing going on in Liberia, we look at different jurisdictions. For example, we look at, for example, the United States. And then if we
Mr.
find
Ability,
out that there is someone, yeah,
before you go there, you say you document war-related crimes. I want you to walk me through that. You know that word document. The war is over. The war has been over for some years now. So when you say you document war-related crime, what is involved in that? What do you
well,
do specifically?
oh yeah, I understand that. Hang on a sec. Listen, we have trained people and trained to international standard. Some of our staff are trained at the same place where we have some of our staff have been training with guys from Scotland Yard in the United Kingdom, from Switzerland, from the United States, from France, from other places. So there is an internationally acceptable standard. Documentation. We write, we investigate what happens. Documentation involves first identifying or understanding if crimes were committed. Say, for example, in my hometown, I come from Sackville in Lima County. I'm very proud of that. If crimes were committed there, we send people and we speak with people. And then if there was an eyewitness, a victim, or a perpetrator or whatever, whoever is willing to speak, we document what they say. We write. You're a reporter. You are a journalist. When you go to press conference, you take notes. So in this field, it's called documentation. So that's what it is called. And there are steps and standards that are observed in accordance with international, at least minimum international standards. So once we do that, we identify the country or the jurisdiction where the individual who is accused of committing the crime is resident at. We approach the jurisdictional authority. We also work with our partner in Geneva, based in Geneva, Switzerland, called Civitas Maxima. We approach jurisdictional authorities in those countries and we submit what we have found. Then they will review that and they will, in return, conduct an independent, separate investigation to find out if what we said is accurate, is truthful. So they'll do that. That's what the United States does. That's what Scotland, the United Kingdom does. That's what France does, Switzerland, Belgium, the Netherlands, Finland. That's how it is done. So they conduct their own investigation. If they found what we said is accurate, then of course, before they begin a full investigation, and some of these investigations, I can tell you, minimum time is 2 years for one case. 2 years, one case, or more. Some cases have gone to 4 years or more than 4 years. So this is not a 1 month or 2 weeks or 3 months stuff. So once they do that, they're convinced. They also approach their authorities, the prosecutorial authorities in their respective countries, and present to them what they have found. And just to cut it short, then of course, based on what they believe, either an arrest is effected or the case is dropped. If an arrest is effected, then of course the process, the rest of the process, because we are not a government, and no Liberian government up to this point is willing or has shown willingness to get involved in prosecuting suspected war criminals. And we believe that this is because of political reasons, both in the past and the present. And of course, if we as a country fail to do it, we will be faced with the prospect that some of our leaders may be arrested overseas. War crimes, as I told you, are international crimes. So when they are committed in Liberia, for example, they're perceived as having been committed against the rest of the civilized world. So anybody can prosecute. Take a look at Hissène Habré situation from Chad. He was resident in Senegal. So other countries, for example, Belgium, had to mount pressure on Senegal to prosecute this guy. So that's the way it is. And there is no statute of limitation to war-related crimes. For example, 1939 to 1945, the Nazi Holocaust against the Jewish people, up to a few years ago, some are still being arrested and prosecuted. So that's the
Yeah.
situation. So
Thank
nobody
you.
should think for 1 second that we are going to sit and wait for their colonial attitude to tell us what to do. There
Thank you.
are means that we can do it. We're not going to wait for the TRC to be implemented because we do not know. Nobody knows which Liberian government is going to implement the TRC. So what should we do? Sit down and allow all of the witnesses and or perpetrators to die before a TRC is created? No. We
No.
do understand that some of the politicians in Liberia are playing wait and see and trying to
Yeah.
intimidate people. And some Liberians as well are, in my view, colluding with other people to make sure that the TRC is not created, that the TRC's
So,
recommendation is not, are not implemented. We have
yeah.
worked with the legislature. I want to say in this public manner, thank you to Representative of Montserrat County District Number 4, Rosalind Swap Dennis, who was the first person we approached, and she took the mantle on her head. Represented the County District 8, Larry Yokwe, represented Boshua, Grand Bassa County, and Nathan Babul, all of those representatives. Currently, there are 54 signatures. And the Speaker of the current House of Representatives, in person of Honorable Bob Chimman, had just simply refused to pull this bill, to pull this stuff on the floor of the legislature for debate, for discussion.
Right.
So
That's nice.
these are the stumbling blocks, and we continue to work. At
Thank
the
you.
same time, we
Thank
have
you.
a
We'll get to
kernel
that,
of
Mr. Billington.
evidence.
Mr. Billington, so what are some of the places in Liberia that you've been to do this documentation, and what has been the outcome?
Well, we've been all over Liberia. As a matter of fact, I cannot think of any specific county that the documentation team headed by the investigation department headed by one of our staff, honorable staff called Morgan Farley. I cannot think of anywhere that our team has not been. But our greatest successes I have to admit have come from Lupa County, especially FOIA. I have to say thanks to the people of FOIA that many of our cases, majority of our cases have come from FOIA and been largely successful. But we've been to Lupa County, Lima County, Grand Jetta, Maryland, Rivergy, Grand Cruz, Sino, Grand Basso, Monserrado, Kwame County, Babalu, Grand Cape Mountain County. I mean, almost all of the 15 counties in Liberia. So we've been to those counties and we've documented. Now, we document for two purposes. One, if the suspect is in different jurisdiction, different country, we approach the authorities in that country to take action. If the suspect or the accused individual is in Liberia, we are electronically storing those pieces of evidence that we got for the TRC whenever it yields fruit, whenever it comes to fruition. So two purposes. Currently, those who are out, we go after them, and those who are here, we can't do anything. We're not government. Sorry, the ring has increased in momentum. But those who are here, we store the evidence. Whenever the legislature passes into law those recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, we will make our submission to them. You know, and this is very important because you have to understand what is in the TRC. These are testimonies that do not necessarily constitute evidence that meets minimum international standards.
Right, and that's the question. And that's the question I was coming to.
Hang on a sec. These are leads telling a possible war crimes court and its investigative team that you need to look here. Yeah?
Right. So, Mr. Billington, to what extent, from your experience, the documentation you are doing, to what extent have those documentations contradicted or corroborated what is in the TRC. All those testimonies that
Well,
were
no,
taken.
listen. Listen. Okay, I understand. The TRC is not a working tool for us. Mr. Ja, I'm sorry. There's heavy rain now, so you're gonna have to speak a little louder. And I
Yeah.
hope that the listeners are understanding what I'm saying. The TRC recommendation is not a working tool for us specifically. There are many crimes that were committed that were not captured in the TRC. I have to pay respect to those, to the men and women who work with the TRC. But the TRC is not specifically a yardstick that we. Hello, are you talking? I'm not hearing you.
No, I'm hearing you. Go ahead.
Okay. The TRC is not specifically a yardstick by which we go. As I said to you, even if the war crimes court is created in Liberia tomorrow, Monday, 31st May, every accusation in the TRC will have to be reinvestigated. So it is the reinvestigation that we are conducting, definitely on our part. We're not specifically using the TRC. We've had cases that individuals accused were not mentioned in the TRC. The TRC could not have possibly spoken with or contacted every victim of the Liberian Civil War. So that is clear. As I said, we respect the TRC. We want the TRC to work to the extent that we have been able to bring in the International Criminal Justice Department of the University of Nottingham in the United Kingdom to look at how easily the TRC could be implemented when you juxtapose it with international law. Because war crimes, uh, especially war crimes, which are international crimes, there are two major set of crimes in the TRC. You got national crimes, which will be economic crimes. Those can be addressed by Liberian courts and Liberian people, Liberian courts. But war crimes are international crimes, of course. As one of the speakers said before, this will have to be, this will have to be addressed in accordance with international law. So basically, we believe that the TRC did a lot, and the TRC is what you call among media practitioners as a lead, L-E-A-D. It leads you. Then you go and investigate because in war crimes investigation, there are several things that one needs to take into consideration. For example, the investigator's note is very important. When a person goes to speak with someone, they have to first of all find out. They have to write how they met or how they found the person. That is international standard. Then they will have to keep their original note. That is called the investigation note. So there is a bunch of stuff that one has to observe to be able to bring a particular case to trial when it comes to war crimes.
Okay.
And this is exactly and this is why our work is accepted in the United States, in the United Kingdom, in France, in Belgium, in Switzerland, in Finland, in the Netherlands, all over the world, because we follow those rules.
Thank you. Mr. Billiter, so what have you gotten so far? Have your work resulted into the arrest or prosecution of any alleged war criminal?
All right. First of all, you have different jurisdictions around the world, and the applicability of the law is different. Are you hearing me? The green is very heavy. Are you
Yeah,
hearing
I'm
me?
hearing you. You're very clear. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. The applicability of the law is different from country to country. For example, the United States. It is very difficult to charge someone with war crimes in the United States, war-related crimes, especially war crimes in the United States, before 94, 93. The reason is committing war crimes of torture and murder on foreign soil became criminalized in the United States in 94, 96, respectively. In France, if you want to charge someone with war crimes, it has to be committed on foreign soil. It has to be after March 1993. So in the United Kingdom, there is a different law. For example, if a war crime were committed in 1990, the more progressive UK law that came after 1990 cannot be applicable. It will be the 1988 criminal justice law of the United Kingdom that will be applicable, and which has very strenuous restrictions. For example, it will tell you that when a person commits an armed person who's connected to an armed group commits a crime, the rape, the murder, and stuff like that, for that crime to be termed war crime, two conditions must be fulfilled. One, the armed group must have had military control over the territory at the time of the commission of the crime. That's one. Two, the same armed group must have had administrative control or civil authority. For example, they must have had, in the case of Liberia, superintendent, police, hospital, clerk, revenue collectors. It must be functioning like a government before it could be termed as war crime. That is, if the crime was committed before 1991 to 3, So there are different stuff. So in our case, in the United States, for example, Mr. Thomas Woyu, may his soul rest in peace, his soul and the soul of all faithful departed rest in peace. His case, he could not be directly charged with war crimes because the statute came into effect for torture 94, for murder 96. And most of the things he was accused of were around 1992, which would be Operation Octopus. So because the authorities could not charge him directly with war-related crimes, they looked at his immigration file. That when people travel to the United States, it's a form that people fill out. One or A was, did you commit this? Did you do this? And people are generally inclined to say no. So based upon that, it's the same thing with Jungle Java's situation. Based upon that, of course, they can hold the person on immigration charges, immigration charges, but then war crimes evidence used to prove that the person lied. For example, in the case of Honorable Mr. Chucky Taylor, Charles Taylor Jr., MacArthur Taylor, he was the first casualty of that 1994 law that forbids U.S. citizens going overseas and committing torture and this kind of crap. Chucky was the first casualty of that law. In France, 93 March. So this is how it works. So we have had cases in the United States. We have ongoing cases in the United Kingdom. We have ongoing cases in the United States, which I'm not going to talk about. We have ongoing cases in France. We have current case arrest. In all of those areas, Belgium, Switzerland. Of course, I know this whole stuff is all about Finland, and we would never kneel down before anybody to allow them to dictate to us what to do and what to say. It's about Finland. It's about specific case. I cannot discuss the evidence of the case, but I'm totally armed and prepared to discuss anything related to all of those. So it is the GJRP that has produced substance. No other person, not the United Nations, not Liberia, no other organization has held any Liberian citizen accountable for war-related crimes committed inside Liberia. Chucky Taylor was arrested for crimes in Liberia, but as a U.S. citizen. Those of you who are listening to me and are familiar with Boston, Mass Ave, I lived in Boston before. Massachusetts Avenue, that's where he was born. He's a U.S. citizen. President Charles Taylor was arrested, he's a Liberian, for crimes inside Sierra Leone. It is we who have been responsible in collaboration with jurisdictional authorities around the world to hold Liberian citizens accountable for crimes committed in Liberia. Now, if that's a source of tension for anybody, I'm not sure we really care much about that.
Right. And who are those people that you help? Are you saying you were part of the case or what brought against Tom Waweyu, Jonko Jiba, and who else? Give me some names.
Listen, Jah, I'm telling you, besides President Taylor and Chuck, and I think besides Mr. George Bush, basically all other ones are work. Every other single one. Nobody should tell you anything else. Every other
Including
single one
including
initiated
Agnes,
from us.
including
Now,
Agnes Taylor?
pardon?
Including Agnes Taylor?
Including Agnes, who you call Agnes Taylor? I know Agnes Reed.
Yeah, Agnes Reeves, who was married to Taylor. That's what I call Agnes Reeves Taylor.
Well, no. Hang on a second. Let me set the record straight. I know, I'm a straight talker. Many people are going to hate me. I know
Okay.
President Charles Taylor was only married to two persons. One, Tupi Taylor, Tupi Taylor, and two, the current Vice President, Joe Howard Taylor. That's what I know. You go
Okay.
Google it. You'll see that President Taylor was married to, and the last person in Nigeria. You're not going to see any Agnes Taylor there. You're going to see Tupi. You're going to see Jewel. You're going to see the next person. I don't remember his name. So Google it.
Okay,
President
so it's Agnes Reeves.
whom I believe was well, no. President was married to the person whose name I've called.
Okay.
Google it and see it.
Sure.
Yeah. So our involvement was with Miss Agnes Reed.
Okay. Yeah.
And
All right. Yeah, that's important.
maybe you wanted to talk about that, right? But that was a case that we lost for different reasons other than evidence. Because in the UK we work with Scotland. They are the oldest police force in the world. We also work with the Crown Prosecution Service, which is the prosecutorial arm of the United Kingdom. So there were legal technicalities that led the case to being dismissed.
Okay. Mr. Billiter, there are other groups, advocates, and other people working on this same or war-related, Liberian Civil War-related crimes. Are you working with any Liberian group doing the same thing?
Well, first of all, we work with all the human rights organizations inside Liberia. I think about 2 weeks ago, we're just with the protest. I mean, the peaceful protest at the Capitol building. I was there and I spoke. So we work with all of them. We support them morally, and if need be, we provide physical, financial support, to them that has to do with logistics. So yes, we work with all. We work with all. We work with the. In fact, we work with the bar. I just told you earlier that because the TRC, there were some issues that we believe that had a little contradiction with some international law. So what we did is to contact the Liberian National Bar Association headed by Councillor Tiawan Ganglo, and we brought people from the University of Nottingham in the United Kingdom to come and do some work on that. And as I'm speaking to you, the Liberian Bar Association has completed that work, and they're calling a civil society meeting tomorrow to brief people on that. So we have done a lot, yeah.
All right. The reason I ask is you were accused by Mr. or Councillor Jerome Verdier, and I read that in the news that you were engaged in coaching witnesses and paying them. Did you hear that too?
Well, normally I don't pay attention to that, but it was brought to my attention by my deputy, Mr. Ernest Fire Williams. Now, first of all, did he explain, whoever the person name you call it, whether it's Bradley or Jerome, whoever you call it, did he explain to you what he meant by coaching? First, we categorically deny that in a sense of coaching. We deny that, we reject that, and we think that that is very much diabolical. I have rejected it, but I have to say this.
Right.
If he or any other person explained to you what he meant when he said coaching, being on the surface, it is easier to convince people, but you have to go beneath the surface to understand. Did he say what he meant by coaching? Of course, we don't coach. Maybe, just maybe, because just maybe, I have to say this. I'm sorry. When a man's mind is weak, that man thinks that that thread of weakness runs through every other man's head. What he probably did, or what they probably did at the TRC, we don't do that. I have a lot of respect for the TRC, huge respect. In fact, we remain through all of our legislative and social and societal engagement with the Liberian people. We remain in contact with the TRC. I have huge respect, huge, 100+% respect for TRC members. Master Washington in the United States, Reverend Ambassador Gerald Coleman, John H.T. Stewart, Dolope, all of them. You understand? But the individual, Mr. Ma, I don't think you should take his word seriously, because he has accused all of his former colleagues on the TRC. He has accused them one way or the other. They accused them of taking money from Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, president of the Republic of Liberia, former president. He's accused them of taking money from George Weah. He's accused them of everything. I'm not sure we need here, when we're talking substantively, to dwell on a cynical individual who thinks that nobody else should do anything besides them. So that accusation is baseless. Every war crimes investigator is accused. Every journalist is accused. Probably you have been accused before. Every person who fights for the right thing is accused. And I think that he should have said thank you and went on his way. Otherwise, I don't really care what he says.
Right.
It's not relevant anymore. If he comes to Liberia, he's not going to sit 3,000+ miles away from the shores of Liberia and try to dictate to people what to do and what to say. I respect him as an individual, but I have never met him face to face at all. I think he'll tell you that. I've never seen him. I've never met with him. So accusation of coaching witnesses is a lie. If he says that, then he is underrating the intelligence and the capacity of the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Switzerland, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Finland. I'm not
Thank
sure
you.
he's better than those
So,
people.
Mr. Belete,
So I have
Councillor
respect for
Brodler
him.
has a former chairman of the TRC, carries a lot of clout, right? Where do you think this is coming from?
No. Listen, for me, listen. I'm a maverick. I am a maverick, and I believe that's one of the reasons why, when President Charles Taylor was president, I went to jail 7 times. I'm a maverick. I don't necessarily follow orders. When I doubt something, I question it. So being title don't mean anything. I believe in results. I believe in work. President George Weah is president of Liberia. He has not done, in my view, he has not pushed enough. He's done a little. He's not pushed enough for the TRC. So title for me is nothing. I don't, whoever it is, for me, title is nothing. I want results. I want it now.
Mr. Belete,
I want it now with the tools I have, not with the tools I need.
Okay. My question is, where is this possibly coming from?
All right. Now, this is a big one. The accusation, well, you have not said all. They have also, let me tell you another thing they have said. They have said that I was a Yulim, is it learned or Yulim? I think, all right, they have said I was I'm not sure whether it's Ulimo. I don't want to misquote it. I was a fighter, either for Ulimo or Lair. They've said that. They've also said that we gave money to witnesses. So I'll take this platform to address all of those. So this is where this is coming from. This is coming from the Jibril Massacre situation. Mr. Jibril Massacre, and listeners, please forgive me. I can't discuss evidence because the case is currently under judicial consideration. So you will understand that, subjudice. Now, Mr. Jibril Massacre was an RUF, is a former RUF fighter and former RUF spokesperson and liaison who was involved in the RUF between 19, I hope I'm not getting the history wrong, but from the time around the time the Sierra Leonean Civil War started to the end, which is before, not later than 1998. So Mr. Massacre, after the collapse of the RUF in Sierra Leone and the restoration of peace to that country, Mr. Massacre, we believe, and other RUF guys came to Liberia. Now, if you were in Monrovia at about that time, at the time I was with the analyst newspaper, and I used to live on Beach Road, I was staying in an apartment with former RUF guys. So if you were in Monrovia at the time, you would know that there were RUF people here. So we believe, based on our evidence, that Mr. Massacre came to Liberia and was involved with assisting the Liberian government, President Charles Taylor, when the Liberian Civil War started. He came towards the end of 1999, sometime towards the latter part of 1999. The second Liberian Civil War started, I think, officially announced on April 21st, 1999. I served as editor for the analyst newspaper. Now, so we believe he was here. And we believe that up to the time third forces, I was in the United States, of course. But up to the time third forces reached Monrovia, this guy was here. When I was in Freetown, he came regularly. Oh, shit. I'm sorry for that word. But I'm trying to delve into the evidence. But we believe he was here. I'll just stop at that.
Yeah.
That he committed war-related crimes in Liberia between the latter part of 99 and 2003. So remember, in 2003, President Charles Taylor was forced to step down.
Correct.
And he stepped down and traveled to Nigeria. Now, Mr. Massacre was one of the persons who was recruited by the Special Court for Sierra Leone, the investigation unit headed by one Mr. Alan White, an American guy who's in there where you guys are, to be a witness. Now, you will appreciate the fact that Mr. Massacre was suitably placed to be able to know about President Taylor's involvement in Sierra Leone. He was an agent, he was a spokesperson. So Mr. Massacre provided evidence against his colleagues. He ratted, as in the state, they say he ratted on them, threw them under the bus. That is not a problem. We appreciate that. We like people who come forward. So those would be Issa Sise, Augustine Bao, in part President Taylor and other people. Whatever the significance of the evidence he provided against these people is immaterial. Now, this guy was supposed to have been promised not to be prosecuted. You have to understand that Sierra Leone legally is a different jurisdiction.
Right.
It's called territorial jurisdiction. And the time frame which predates the commencement of the Second Liberian Civil War, 21st July 1999, the time frame is a different temporal jurisdiction. This must be understood. So whether this guy was granted immunity from prosecution or not, of course, we didn't see any evidence of that. In accordance with the statute of Special Court for Sierra Leone, whether you are granted whether you're granted immunity from prosecution or not, that is immaterial. If he were granted immunity from prosecution, that would have been, for different countries, different time periods, Sierra Leone. territorial jurisdiction, temporary jurisdiction up to 1998, 97, 98. So it does not cover, it will not cover, it cannot cover something in the future in different countries. You want to get this guy a carte blanche? So we believe. So despite Mr. White, we believe, Mr. Alan White, of course, I've known him for the time of the United States, so many times. I have respect for him. I'm not going to, reduce that respect. I still do have respect for him. But Mr. White feel that his actions betrayed Mr. Massacre. So they don't want Mr. Massacre to be prosecuted. How dare you, Jerome and Mr. White, you defend a person who murdered Liberian citizens? How dare you?
So, Mr. Ability, let me get this clear.
Hang on a sec.
Mr. Ability,
President Taylor is in jail
Mr.
for
Ability,
being responsible for maiming and murdering people in Sierra Leone. Mr. Massacre is on trial for being responsible and maiming people in Liberia. What's the difference?
Okay.
Every life is equal, must be treated equal. So they do not want Mr. Jibril Massacre to go on trial. Otherwise, Thomas Boy, Jamal Java, whoever, Martina Johnson, all of those people were arrested. We never heard anything from them. They have interest here. And I'm sorry, I can't go in detail. We're going to wait till this trial ends. I'm going to come with a bomb blast. Absolutely. They do not want a guy to stand trial, a guy who we believe murdered Liberians in Lopa County. If you're from Lopa County, understand that. Speaking of people, call back home, they're going to tell you that. In Lopa County. So in Montreal County, of course, this is what we believe. And this is our evidence. The determination should be left to the court to make whether this guy committed these crimes or not. They have a lot of theories that I personally believe we have successfully discounted. I believe that's not what the court says. I'm not speaking for the court. Remember.
Thank you.
Basically, that's where the problem is. So,
Mr. Ability.
Mr. Agame, you want a detail? You want me to speak? You want to ask questions?
I just want to get a little clarification before you continue. So you're saying because Massacre testified in the Sierra Leone trial against Charles Taylor and presented evidence against him, he was granted some form of immunity. So you say now that was between, let's say, 1991 and 98. After that time, Jibril Massacre committed crimes in Liberia, or allegedly committed crimes, and that's why you are having the evidence against him. And Mr. Alan White and also Mr. Verdier, they don't like that and they are mad. That's why they are fabricating things against you. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. Well, first let me make one correction. What you said is 95% correct.
Okay.
I'm not saying he was granted immunity. Not even Alan White would tell you he was granted immunity. They promised not to prosecute him. That's different from granting someone immunity. But even if he was granted immunity, the immunity cannot be extraterritorially exported. If you committed a crime in 2005 and they grant you immunity because you provided testimony, and in 2009, the 2005 immunity for Christ's sake cannot cover what you did in 2009. Can't they see that? Because they think we black people, we're Liberian, so they can use power. Well, we're going to go to the end of it. That's exactly what the situation is, what you said. Now, there's two competing parallel interests here. One is the interest of Alan White, which I believe. Now, I'm not saying the court said that. This is what I believe. Now, Mr. White feels that Mr. Massacre should not be in trial because of what he told him. And Mr. White is under pressure from people on Mr. Massacre's side. He said this guy was not going to go on trial, But what he did not tell them, that even if we can prosecute you, or even if you were given immunity, the immunity will only be restricted to crimes you might have made it in Sierra Leone. That crime to extraterritorially committed. That is insane. It's ridiculous. That outrage. You cannot do that. Then the second one is, I'm sorry, in Liberia we say the turtle. The turtle wants to fight, but the hands are short. I'm restricted by the ongoing case, so I can't really say much. But after it, I'll say much. Then the second instance, Mr. Brady, who has fallen out with almost all of the TRC members. He's accused all of them of all kind of crimes, and he has complained to everybody, including Santa Claus. Thinks that it is only he who can do this kind of work. I appreciate his involvement with the TRC. I honor him and honor all other TRC members. But our work does not in any way undermine the TRC. It complements the works of the TRC. You want to know, state, you know whether George Weah is going to do it, and he didn't do it. The next president, do you know whether he's going to do it? We should sit and allow what? No, that's not happening. So, second, Mr. Brady has allowed, unfortunately, and himself to be used and misused, in my view. I'm sorry for some of the harsh languages I employ, but I think he's allowed to be used and misused by Mr. White. He's fighting Mr. White's battle. Don't go knocking on the devil's door. Don't go fighting the war. You're not going to win. You have turned yourself into a fifth columnist in the fight for human rights in Liberia. You are revered. You were revered. Maybe I should say it at this point. But your support for a suspected war criminal, if you don't take time, it's going to wash away all of the successes you have gained in the human rights community. We all respect you. I have never seen, we've never met in person. I don't condemn you, but I'm reacting to the comment you made, Mr. Brady. Your comments are defending Mr. Alan White. After all, Mr. Alan White should not dictate to Liberians. The Liberians in the United States, where I was before, would not allow someone in 3,000 miles away wanting to dictate to us here. If there's a problem, we can solve it. Liberia has brilliant people. I believe Mr. Brady is one. You guys, Jah, you one. You know, many Liberians. We know how to do this. Don't go defend a suspected war criminal.
Right.
I think the interest of justice. By doing so, you are turning yourself into a fake columnist, pretending to work for justice and being a turncoat, as they say in the States. Because I think most of my listeners are there.
So what you make of? I think the name Alan White has come back into our discussion when we're talking about transitional justice in Liberia. He made some statement recently. So you also working on this stuff. What do you make of Alan White?
I didn't listen to it. You're going to have to tell me what he said.
Okay. What is your experience with Alan White working to help Liberia achieve or bringing our perpetrators or alleged war criminals to book?
Well, I don't have any experience with him regarding that. What I do have is when I was in Boston, we talk a lot. You know, he passed on a lot of information to me. Some turned out to be true, some turned out to be false. You know, I'm not going to say lie. There's a difference between lie and false. When a false is told, the person telling the false doesn't know whether that which he or she is saying is accurate. When a lie is told, a lie has deceptive connotation associated with it. So I'm saying specifically, I'm not saying lie. I'm saying some of the things he told me turned out to be true, some turned out to be false. Maybe he just didn't know. Maybe he just missed it. I haven't worked with him to that level. Like when it comes to transitional justice in Liberia, what I do, or what I have seen in the media is that Mr. White called one warlord and a suspect and the person accused of being involved in some kind of economic crime to Ghana and promising to be their helper, their savior, contact. to campaign for them, to drive whatever things against. I've seen that. I've not been in position to verify that. So I'm not going to accuse him of that.
Okay.
So those are his involvement of. I think I've seen a report. I don't know whether that report is true that he approached the current government aware to say that he wanted to be a lobbyist for them, and then they turned it down. I don't know if those are true. First of all, I'm not counting on those, but I do not know. I haven't been involved with him specifically with respect to work. Work on transitional justice. First of all, what is he doing? What organization is this guy a member of? I don't know. I don't know that. I know that there are huge people on the ground. You have Peter Sonia, the chairman of the transitional working group in Liberia. You have Adama Dempster. You have Tour. You have a lot of people working on this issue. You have Alex Soare, Alexander. You have many people. Those are points. You have Councillor Tiawan Ganglo and the Liberian National Bar Association. Probably they should be the premier. War crimes, the TRC, they have done a lot more work on that. I haven't heard of this guy.
Yeah.
I just hope he's not interested in some kind of political stuff. Of course, I'm sorry that I've said that, but I'm not accusing. But
Does he look like someone you can work with?
Attributed to him. Hang on a sec. I heard one statement attributed to him, and I support that. The composition of a future TRC hybrid work comprising of national and international people. I support that. But I also do have to say that clearly in the Liberian case, there are two kinds of crimes. One is international, one is national. International war crimes against humanity, because there was no genocide committed in Liberia by evidence. I'm Mandingo. But and then there's the national crimes, economic crimes. So in terms of support, the international community is more likely to support international crimes. And the Liberian government and people will have to support national crimes. And I can tell you free, I'm not sure any international person will want to support the creation of a financially economic crime. But I think we should pursue economic crimes. But this, in case of support, it's probably not going to happen. For war crimes, as I heard, as read this report, what White said, that is true, that is accurate. The president, the government of Liberia needs to write a letter, a Sierra Leone Day, to the United Nations, and the rest will follow. For example, politicians here, those who don't want war crimes, go talk nonsense, ridiculous, outrageous stuff. They said no money. Sierra Leone, Special Court for Sierra Leone, sponsored by whom? The United Nations. The ICTR, that's the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, sponsored by whom? The United Nations. You got the ICTY, International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. That's supported by Yugoslavia, by the United Nations. There's Lebanon Tribunal, based in The Hague. And then some will talk about security. First of all, under the Liberian law, anybody who carries weapon unauthorized, you're a criminal. Someone who commits crime is a criminal. So nobody has the capacity to make war. But even if we're concerned about security, we're going to have to look at it, the overall goal. The overall goal is and should be justice. So the Rwanda tribunal was never based in Rwanda. It was based in Arusha, Tanzania. The Special Court for Sierra Leone, when it came to the trial of President Trustler, which had a security-related issue, it was moved to Den Haag or The Hague. So the Lebanon tribunal was never based in Lebanon, based in The Hague. So there is no issue. People just giving nonsensical excuses, and they should stop that. The TRC's recommendation needs to be implemented fully. Of course, I do understand some of the constraints.
Thank you.
That the Liberian government may not be in the position to have money to do reparation, but of course they should take quick steps now. And my message goes directly to the buffer chambers, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, President George Weah, to make sure that these things work. We can't and The wait and see game is not going to work. Absolutely, it's not going to work.
Thank you. Mr. Ability, what you say is there a fight among those human rights groups? Or is there some form of competition that, okay, this is my territory or I have to do this? Because we see that a lot of groups have been working on this. One example is Mr. Emmanuel Savage. I think currently he's now in Liberia working on
A
this
great
stuff.
guy, a great guy, a great guy.
Right.
Saab is a very
Are you
great
guys?
guy.
Are you guys? Is there any infighting for territory, or who owns the land when it comes
No,
to the
not
fight
that I'm no zero infighting. It is people outside of Liberia who want to create an impression or who
Mm,
want to create that. Saab is the last peaceful assembly, peaceful march at the assembly at the Capitol building. Service and I were together. Service is a very great, in my view, honest individual. That's what I believe. Peterson Sonia, who is the head of the Transitional Justice Working Group, and also president of Liberian Massacre Association, a great guy. Adama Dempster, a great guy. All of those people, good guys, no problem. Absolutely zero problem. That I'm aware of. There is no problem absolutely. For us, we support them. Our job is purely on war-related crime. That's how document
right.
it and look for avenues to prosecute. That's what we do. That's what we're concerned about.
Yeah.
And we together, we have created a chat room called the Secretariat. We have an organization now called the Secretariat for the Establishment of War Crimes Court, which comprises the Global Justice and Research Project, which I head, which comprises Adama Dempster, which comprises the Civil Society Group, other group which comprises Peterson, Sonia, and all of those people. There's no problem here.
Right.
As a matter of fact, tomorrow we're meeting with the Bar Association
Right.
to carve out the way forward. So if we're not going to let you stay in the United States or some other place. Come down here, flash your badge to make us nervous. That's not going to happen. We
Thank you.
work, we have sacrificed. The men and women here, the Peter Sonia, the Alex Soare, the Council of Tiawan Gangu, and the legislator, the Adama Dempster, and of course, all of those guys,
Thank you,
all of those guys have
Mr.
worked
Ability.
tirelessly. So no, there is no problem here. Absolutely
Right.
zero
And
problem.
we see Mr. Emmanuel Savage is watching. Mr. Savage, welcome and thank you for the work you're doing. So, Mr. Ability, are there some you know, how do I say it? Are there politicians behind this? Are you getting any
No,
help?
no, no, no. Nobody behind it. As I told you earlier before Mr. Service joined, Mr. Service probably deserves more honor than I deserve because he spent his money from Canada to Liberia regularly whenever there is protest. Mr. Service attended our first workshop that we brought in the University of Nottingham. He's fully aware of that to work on to do some brush up on the charities document. So Mr. Chavez, zero problem. No politics
Right.
behind it. If there is, first of all, my offices are at Cardwell. So if you know, and I live around the Broadway area, so there's so much traffic I don't get to town. So maybe I'm missing something here. But as far as I'm concerned, there is no politics. If there is
Right.
politics, it has to be with a politician.
Right. So,
There,
Mr.
there
Ability, here's my follow up.
people.
Because it looked like
Pardon?
politics have gotten in the way, right? Because anytime you speak about war crimes court or the transitional justice process, uh, people supporting the government, the ruling party, now become defensive. That why is it that you are bringing this up now? Why you didn't do this 12 years ago when President Sirleaf was in power, and now you're trying to push President Weah around to implement this? Do you hear that as well? And
Yeah, I
what?
agree. No, I agree with that. Just 1 second. I agree with that. There's no politics dividing the people in the human rights area. Chavez and myself and other people. There's no politics there. I agree with what you said from the government side, but they're losers. First of all, there were protests held, there were representations made when President Sirleaf was in power. And you also have to remember, JRC was submitted in 2009, the recommendation. So these were early days, so people were still trying to figure out what to do. And many people believed then that if a person not accused of war crimes were elected president, that person will be the one who will do it automatically. And we, based on what we know so far, that person could be George Weah, right? So everybody disappointed. I thought personally, and many people thought that he would do it. There's more pressure on his government than any government because people believe because he didn't have any dog in that fight, he would do it freely. But of course, you're right, politics had gotten in. Alice Johnson
Yeah.
Sirleaf people mentioned for 30-year political exclusion, of course, not for criminal prosecution, because the $10,000 aspect constitutes national crime, plotting to overthrow the Liberian government, which is high treason under the Liberian law. So 30 years, the TRC got that 100% on the mark. So
Thank you.
yeah, I'll better give little space to Mr. Savage. Mr. Savage, how you doing? If you know why.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia, Prime Time Sunday. My guest is Mr. Hassan Ability, and we are discussing his organization, the Global Justice and Research Project, and Liberian Civil War related crimes. Mr. Ability, we're going to bring in our few comments that you can respond to. My friend Jimmy Ismail is watching us from Washington, D.C. Chris Boya say, good evening, guys. I'm watching from Casablanca in Morocco. And when we talk about the allegations against you, Sam Wallace, as they say in the media, consider the source of the information before cascading. Emmanuel Savage, writing from Monrovia, say, as usual, it has to do with the people living here. That is, the people living in Liberia should be the one to do this. Emmanuel Savage also said, I have no problem with Mr. Hassan Ability. My first comment was about people on that should be supportive of justice. He continues, Mr. Ability has said that many times. I have zero problem with Mr. Ability and also have no interest in government jobs. I salute Mr. Ability for the work he has done. Sam Wallace said, you might have watched the movie A Few Good Men because you keep quoting lines from there. Did you watch that movie, Mr. Ability? Let me read a few more comments here. Okay, yes, Mr. And then Alfred Nimland say, why now? Why talk about transitional justice now? I don't know if, so those are a few of the comments, if you can respond quickly.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, let me say thanks to Mr. Savage. And as I said before, Mr. Savage even sent his comment, I think Mr. Savage deserves more honor than I deserve. I should be saluting him. And I've told him that many times on his platform. Now, because this guy spends his own money. So, Mr. Savage, thank you very much. And I hope we see soon, before you leave. We're at the presentation of the petition at the Capitol about 2 weeks ago. Now, the guy who said that I watched A Few Good Men, yes, I have. I have. Well, people quote from people and people learn books, right? But my point is, it makes sense. You know, I'm an African. English probably is not my first language. Mandingo is my first language, followed by Mano, because I'm from Nima, and then English. Now, people tend to express themselves the way they best can. So I'm a little bit angry. I thought that people would say that the GJRP's work is complementary to the TRC because nobody knows what the TRC is. Can you tell? Can any of the listeners tell? So if we are arresting people, putting them in jail, prosecuting for putting them in jail, you know, I think that that is complementary. And the question about why now? Well, why not now? Why now? Maybe you've not been in tune. I'm sorry to say that sounds a little bit tough, But we have been on it a long time. President Weah came to the presidency with a lot of hopes. You know, I believed VELIEVED. I believed
You
he
are so
would do
smart.
it.
Uh-huh.
Now, I have to also say this in all fairness. I think the current government has been cooperating with respect to our work. That is, the current government has allowed jurisdictional authorities to come to Liberia to investigate. You know, this is in line with Liberia honoring one of its international treaty obligations. I think it's either a 2011 or 2012 treaty obligation that Liberia is under to assist with facilitating and helping in the conduct of international criminal investigation. This government has done that. I have to be honest. I'm sorry if that should offend anybody. We did not get that cooperation from that. We started getting that cooperation in 2009, 2009 when we became president. All right, 2009, the 1 year after he became president. And with the current, hello, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. You say
Can
you're
you hear me?
getting better. Are you saying
All
you're
right.
getting better
With
cooperation
respect
from
to
the
the
current
trial
government?
that came to Liberia, with respect to the Gibraltar Massacre situation, I was referring, it took a lengthy negotiation with the Liberian government to allow the court to be here, to come to Liberia. The court, actually, the judges, the lawyers, both defense and prosecution, the entire team, technical, the police, everybody came to Liberia from Finland. And after, I have to say thanks to the government for facilitating that. I have to be honest with that. And after that, the court moved to Sierra Leone to listen to Sierra Leone witnesses. And from there, the court has moved back to Finland. And there is a big surprise, which I will tell you offline, right? As I told you, I don't want to dig that. But
Thank you.
basically, this is the situation here. And now, because there is no defined time where people seek for justice, people speak when they think it is necessary and it is timely to speak. And I had to inform the listeners that this is war crimes. These are war crimes. War crimes have no statute of limitation. You have to understand that. Nazi
Thank you.
war, 1939-45, people say getting arrested. Okay? So
Thank
our
you.
men are trained to gather evidence as all other people are trained. As I told you, where our staff trained, Scotland Yard has trained there. Some Scotland Yard staff have gone there, school. Some, what's it called, US guys, some Swiss guys, France, and all of this. So we have the same standard, the same
Thank you.
exact standard, if that is not a
Thank,
double negative. The same
thank,
standard, general. So
thank you.
basically,
Thank you, Mr.
even
Billington.
if it takes 50 years, it's going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, we will be ending this very soon, so we have a few more minutes. Let me read a few more comments, and then we can wrap this up. Leroy say,
Yes, sir.
Are you saying the TRC is slow and your organization is getting things done? Teddy is watching us from Fargo. Emmanuel Savage said he's going to be at the Liberian Bar Association tomorrow and hope to meet you. Alfred Mimle is asking whether you are able to provide security during that period of the TRC. I don't want us to get off topic here. Emmanuel Savage also said that now we've got a statement from Cummins and Unity Party supporting War Crimes Code. I hope we can hear from the CPP leadership. Mohammed Sisse is asking about the security implications. I don't want to get involved in that security thing now. But Mr. Belete, before we draw down the curtains, what are your next steps? Where do you go from here as regards the Global Justice and Research Project?
I promise you about 3 arrests before the end of the year. 3 arrests. I'm not going to say where, of course. I'm not a listeners doing that. I promise you about three arrests this year. We continue. And as I said, our documentations have a 2 purposes. One, a future war crimes court in Liberia. We turn them over to them. 2, we will continue to pursue people in the absence of the TRC who committed these heinous crimes and they're still in other countries, and they're there enjoying while their victims are here suffering. Now, I have to talk quickly about this, whether the terrorist is true. No, the question is not about whether the terrorist is true or not. The question is there is no war crimes court in Liberia. There's no accountability mechanism. In the absence of that, the employment by us of the concept of universal jurisdiction, I believe that was the wise idea. It is because of we employ universal jurisdiction that you have people in jail today. People who kill people in local county, in Koya, who kill people in Bone County, in Nimba County, who kill people in Bombay County, in Montserrat County, and other parts of Liberia. So if we had not acted, those people will still be walking the streets free. So we need to bring pressure to bear on our lawmakers first to create a court, to pass the law that will create a court. Then we'll bring pressure on the executive to implement that which the legislature has passed the law. Of course, that's the way it works. So I'm sorry that I sounded a little bit, well, a little bit crazy, but that's the way it works. Now, I will have to say this before you draw down the curtain. I was a victim, as editor in chief of the analyst newspaper, and I spent 6 months in jail, June 24th, 2002 to December 7th, 2002. The only condition under which I was released, you have Ambassador John William Blaney in Washington, D.C., just speak to you. Mr. Blaney came to me in September 2002, and of course, Jonathan Paley, the BBC correspondent, saw me when he said that my hair had gotten gray. The ambassador asked me that the government had agreed to release me in September, that I should leave and go to the United States. I told the ambassador, no, I wasn't going to place. Ask him. He's on Facebook. Just posed the question. I told him I wasn't going to place. He said, why? I said, because they don't have any evidence against me. Let me go to court. He said, no, you're not going to court because they're going to trumble a lot of stuff against me. I said, no, I want to go to court. Then in December, so he left it. So I should have been released in September. In December, excuse me, the IRC director in Monrovia, I think I remember his last name, Dr. Morris, came and saw me. And the IRC brought a document to me. You know, if you have been refugee before, like I was in Ghana, you know. They said, your mom sent this letter. I read it, and my mom was like, well, so rest in peace, she died in years ago, was like saying, well, if you believe that I gave birth to you, take the offer. You know, I have friends who are security guards who you can take the information back. And then took the offer, and then I was released to my study, put in the custody of the United States ambassador and president officials, preparing to the airport under the watchful eye in convoy of Liberian government officials to Roberts Field, and then flew to Ghana and then subsequently to the United States. So my point is, I am a victim. I do not wish to see this happening. There has got to be an end to impunity.
Exactly.
It's clear. If you go on TV5, just Google meet my name for TV5, the first TV, you see the underground cell in which I, along with several, probably 8 or 9 individuals, were held. And then I was flown from there to Fuya, where I spent a month and a half in jail. Fuya was third person who had waged a bush and banditry war on the Liberian people who were just in Kolahu. You do not want that to happen to your kids. You got relatives here, you know, you send in the comfort of the United States, but you have relatives in Liberia. You don't want that to happen. When that happens, you're going to feel it. You're going to send money to them, you're going to be worried and all of that. So I called on the Liberian government, especially the legislature, President George, and other people to make sure that the TRC's recommendations are honored. And I call on those who want to sit 4,000 miles away, that we will never accept, we will never agree for them to colonize our opinion and how we do things here. Mr. Chavez, if you're listening, you're a great guy. Mr. Dempster, you're a great guy. Councilor Ganglo, Peter Estonia, and all of the other guys have not been able to call, remember their name. You guys have done tremendously great job. And all of you guys have put in more effort than we have put in. You know, we just focus on prosecution, documentation, and prosecution. So you guys, if there's you guys who deserve the honor, especially Mr. Sadler, paying personal money to come to Liberia for this. I've never seen that before.
Thank
Don't
you.
reach to your elbow. Mr. Jah?
Yes, sir. And thank you so much. There are still many, many questions here and comments. So we want to invite you
I'm
back
still
as we
available if you want.
But thank you so much for spending your evening with us. I know it's raining over there and the connection was an issue, but this has been very, very helpful, very informative, and we thank you for your time. We also want to
I will impact. Great guy, very great guy, very neutral. And let me just say this quickly. I have to say this, being a journalist myself, I think when people receive information, especially newspapers, before you publish it, you have to call the other party. When people are accused, you call it. There's a paper here called the Independent Probe. I'm not that publishes the trash coming from Mr. Alan White and Mr. Brady. Mr. Brady, I have respect for you. I do not allow yourself to be used by this guy. I do not allow your personal wishes to cloud over the brightness of a character. I think you're a bright guy. Just take it easy. Right? All right. Hi to bye to all of the listeners, and thank you. God bless from Monrovia, from Irene Monrovia.
thank you so much. And on behalf of all of us here at Focus on Liberia, I want to say thank you, Mr. Belede. I want to say thanks to all our viewers and even those who would listen and watch this show later. We appreciate it. And we want to say thank you so much for spending your Sunday with us. And we never close our broadcast without playing the song that says, "We are all Liberians." Whether you believe the TRC report, you believe there should be a war crimes court or not, we are all Liberians, and we must do our best to keep our country or make that the glorious land of liberty. Good night and God bless you.
We are Liberians.